Hi everybody, it's still December 16, 2019. I want to apologize for the audio problems. In the video that I posted earlier, this is what you heard.
That's what this is. This is a silent weapons system of death.
Okay, I don't understand that. That biofeedback is different from other times when I've had that biofeedback from playing videos. I'm not doing anything different, so I don't understand why this occurs sometimes and it doesn't occur other times. So, I don't know. I do apologize for it. This was a particularly low volume video because I had it all the way up on both, the YouTube volume and my volume. So please don't assume that when somebody uploads a video and then there are problems, don't just automatically assume that it is the person who's uploading the video. It has become increasingly difficult to, well, certainly volume now is very inconsistent when it used to be consistent all the time on YouTube. So there's a lot going on. Anyway, I received an email linking to the hoaxes of Deborah Tavares, conspiracy, weaponized weather, fires, depopulation. Okay. I read some of it. I don't like it when people do this. I don't understand this. Okay, I'll read some of it. The NASA war document hoax. The document is real, but has been modified to fit the hoax. The document is actually a PowerPoint presentation that a chief NASA scientist created and used at a national convention of American defense contractors to urge them to develop countermeasures against the diabolical weapons described therein. NASA may actually be killing us all with diabolical weapons in furtherance of the planned extinction of mankind. But this particular document itself, upon which Deborah Tavares herself says she bases this particular claim, provides no support for that proposition because it was actually created and actually used in an effort to prevent such an occurrence. All right. Let's say that that document was a PowerPoint presentation with a chief NASA scientist who was urging defense contractors to develop countermeasures against the diabolical weapons. The diabolical weapons, by the way, when you scroll down and get to, I guess, post 2 for actual proof, well, let's go there now. Okay. The document actually says, by page number, the threat of Russia, Iran, Iraq, Pakistan, all of which are other nations. The threat that 70% of the world's research is going on outside the U.S. The threat that the U.S. produces only 18% of the world's GDP. The threat that other countries lead the U.S. in science, research, trade, economics, savings rates, math scores. The threat that, according to current economic trends, the U.S. is falling behind while China and other countries are excelling. You know, when you read these documents and you have a pretty good grasp of all of the agendas that are taking place that have been implemented incrementally over a whole lot of decades, when you realize that we are being killed off, there are diabolical weapons in furtherance of the planned extinction of mankind, you're claiming that Deborah Tavares now is using the NASA war document as a hoax because the NASA war document has been modified to fit the hoax, even though you yourself are admitting that NASA may actually be killing us all with diabolical weapons. I don't understand this. Now, I read the NASA war document years ago. I don't remember coming across the information that that document was a PowerPoint presentation for developing countermeasures against these weapons that other countries were going to be using. Okay. There's an awful lot of documents out there, and those documents do not come out and say, we, the U.S. military, will be killing Americans. So there's so much deception, and to claim that Deborah Tavares is using this as a hoax when, point of fact, it's going on today. This is happening. What is in the NASA war document? It's happening. Right now. We're being killed off with diabolical weapons. Okay, so what's the hoax part? I don't get it. Silent weapons for quiet wars. Document is real, but it's political fiction. The Bilderbergs adopted a plan in 1954 to kill us all with diabolical silent weapons and quiet wars in furtherance of the planned extinction of mankind. That's a fraudulent claim by Deborah Tavares. Okay. So, to the person who sent this to me, you claim that that document is political fiction. It is a disguised complaint about the treason and horrors suffered by U.S. soldiers when the U.S. government allegedly allowed them to be killed at Pearl Harbor in order to draw us into World War II. This tiny booklet has nothing to do with the Bilderbergs. Okay, I don't remember Deborah Tavares saying the Bilderbergs, but perhaps she did. The Bilderbergs, then you claim the Bilderbergs may actually be killing us all with diabolical silent weapons and quiet wars in furtherance of the planned extinction of mankind. But this particular document itself, upon which Deborah Tavares herself says she bases this particular claim, provides no support for that proposition because it is actually political fiction. Well, the support is in your face. It's going on. It's happening. So, political fiction, perhaps, but it's going on. It's happening. Whether it's the Bilderbergs or the psychopathic elite, that to me is irrelevant. So, it's a hoax. You know, many people have seen this document, and have not come out and said that it's political fiction, but it doesn't matter. The fiction, let's just say, has become nonfiction. Iron Mountain hoax, Agenda 21 hoax. All right, this is where I really began to see that people who spend an awful lot of time trying very hard to discredit someone who has presented information that is invaluable to many around the world. It's that they're not really understanding that you've got to get beyond the personality. You've got to get beyond the personality. You look at these documents and then you think about what's going on. And then you are seeking the truth. So, I hope I'm making myself clear. But this Agenda 21, okay. The Agenda 21 document itself is real. It is a United Nations document. So the hoax is not the document itself. Agenda 21 was merely a suggestion, which the United States Senate rejected. So Agenda 21 never became a treaty, never became a law. That means Agenda 21 is completely irrelevant. Wow. So Deborah Tavares' own fraudulent claims that the Agenda 21 document constitutes proof that the United Nations is using diabolical means, like fires and laser beams from satellites in space, to force us out of our rural and suburban homes and into increasingly smaller, densely packed, overpopulated kill cities or smart cities, in furtherance of the planned extinction of mankind. But her claims about this document are not so. According to the Agenda 21 document, upon which Deborah Tavares herself says she bases this particular claim, it merely suggested that we reduce the rate at which we deplete our natural resources to the same rate at which our natural resources can recover from being depleted, called sustainable development. Contrary to Deborah Tavares' fraudulent claims, there is nothing in the Agenda 21 document itself upon which Deborah Tavares herself says she bases this particular claim, which suggests we will be forced out of these rural or suburban homes and into increasingly smaller, densely packed, overpopulated kill cities or smart cities. Okay, nothing. What Deborah Tavares calls the Agenda 21 map is fake, and the Senate, United States Senate, rejected Agenda 21. So, unbelievably, this person, because the United States never ratified Agenda 21, they think it's irrelevant, that it's not happening. Rejected both the Agenda 21 and Biological Diversity Treaty. That means it's completely irrelevant in the United States. Wow. Okay. We know Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 is being implemented in the United States. Okay, this person apparently is an attorney, all right, and goes through a whole lot of hoax coming out of Deborah Tavares' mouth. That's everything's a hoax. Meanwhile, everything that she speaks of is actually happening. The agendas are being implemented. This hurts us so much. We will never get anywhere. This community is so... This is Snoop for Truth that spent an awful lot of time trying to discredit Deborah Tavares. Now, there's a lot of documents out there, and yeah, I would venture to say that every one of us has made a mistake sometimes, but to call everything a hoax, to say that it's law, or didn't become law, Agenda 21, and therefore it's irrelevant. That scares me. So, Snoop for Truth revealed this information solely to reduce the catastrophic damage that such intentional fraud inflicts upon the American people every single day. Had it not been for Deborah Tavares' role in the Judge Dale hoax, Snoop for Truth would not have revealed this information here. Oh, so just one hoax got you inspired? Because you sure do reveal a lot of hoaxes of Deborah Tavares's. Why, if it was a hoax, if she was just speaking hoaxes, then I would have thought that you would have been motivated for every one of them. The message is to all charlatans and hoaxers: just tell the truth. The truth does not fear investigation. Only lies fear investigation. The truth can be supported by using the truth. And I believe this guy is an attorney. Okay. Well, guess what? Everybody has to understand. The deception is great. Just because the United States did not sign on to the Agenda 21 treaty, we didn't ratify it, does not mean that the United States is not implementing it. It's kind of like, oh, Trump pulled us out of the Paris climate change agreement. Really? Yeah, you want to believe that? How about his federal agencies, the EPA, implications for, and I'll link below to everything. You can spend time looking into this. Every federal agency, well, I haven't checked every one of them, but virtually everyone is implementing sustainability, climate change policies. Does it matter if Trump says we're out of the Paris Agreement? No, that's irrelevant. What people say, what treaties we sign or don't sign, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is what's happening. Yes, the EPA's Climate Change Adaptation Resource Center. How about the $84,000 study the EPA is doing to find out how churches can be used to combat climate change? Trump's federal agencies. Trump's. How about the Department of Health and Human Resources, climate change and human health, the impacts of climate change on human health in the United States. Do you think Trump doesn't know this? The lies coming out of our current quote-unquote leaders are the same as the lies that came out of the leaders before, and way back when We didn't sign on to Agenda 21. That means it's irrelevant. It's not taking place. Well, it is. Big time. Getting people out of rural and suburban communities, it's happening. I don't want to see people sending me this stuff anymore. This person's a disinformation agent. This person's a shill. This person is speaking hoaxes and then claiming that Deborah Tavares, I guess is she's creating catastrophic damage upon the American people every single day. There's also this idea that you've got to protect. You can't, if you say what is actually happening, then you're a fearmonger. Well, this is how I deal with adults. They're adults. And adults handle scary matters. They attend to them. We have been so infantilized in our country that now you have to say things. You can't really go into detail, but you have to say things in a really pleasant voice and gentle and, in that sugary, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I speak as if I am speaking to adults, responsible adults that aren't walking the low road and have that consciousness of, it's all about the personality. It's not about the truth that you're delivering. It's about you and how you say things. Done with it. Have no patience for it. And the whole fear-mongering bullshit. Fear-mongers, what is that? Is it communicating information that's not real? Just trying to incite fear in people? Is that what it's about? Or communicating information that's actually real, but it incites fear? Well, if it incites fear in adults, you have the problem. You need to grow up. You need to face the reality. The reality is, we are in big trouble. And all of these people who are trying to discredit people, instead of focusing on the information, getting that, and I stopped after, a while, because it's all, Snoop, you're admitting that, this may be going on. Well, that's what you need to be focusing on, not Deborah Tavares. It's happening. Jesus. Yeah. So the climate change thing? Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. What is this? The Department of Energy is also implementing climate change policies. This is government, federal government, the federal entities responsible for addressing climate change. EPA, the U.S. Council on Environmental Quality, U.S. Department of Agriculture, U.S. Department of Commerce, and NOAA, U.S. Department of Defense, U.S. Department of Energy, U.S. Department of Health and Human Resources, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and FEMA, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, U.S. Department of Interior, U.S. Department of State, U.S. Department of Transportation, U.S. Global Change Research Program, U.S. National, NASA, U.S. Security and Exchange Commission. Wow. And state, local, and tribal governments implementing climate change policies. So really, does it matter what Trump says? And then people use what he says as an argument that, see, he's real, he's genuine, he's not working for, he's not working on the wrong side. He's fighting for us. He wants to make America great again. And you use what he says as an argument. Not what he does, but what he says. Great. Great. Brilliant. Here's the Department of Energy. Climate change. Addressing the effects of climate change is a top priority. It's a top priority. U.S. Government Accountability Office. Climate change may increase the frequency and intensity of certain natural disasters. It's all a show. Everything is a show. Put on for the American people to get them to believe all of the lies that are spewed. And yes, Trump is absolutely one really big, humongous liar. How about the climate mayors? Yeah, the climate mayors. 438 U.S. climate mayors commit to adopt, honor, and uphold Paris Climate Agreement goals. Now, how our government is supposed to work? The president negotiates and signs international treaties. So, how is it that we've got mayors signing on to an international agreement and Trump doesn't say anything about this? My mayor here in Anderson, South Carolina, is one of them. You can scroll through the list, find out if your mayor is implementing Paris climate change, the policies that were agreed upon then. Find out if they're implementing it in your area. Now that's the problem. People like to, they love false hope. They don't care that it's all false. Just give me hope. Okay, Trump, he's working for us. And he's going to fight to make America great again. But he hasn't done anything with vaccines. And he hasn't done anything to clean up the environment. He's rolling out very dangerous frequencies. So you can't make any country great if the population is sick and diseased and getting more sick and diseased. That's where you start. You implement policies that will bring the health of the nation back. So if you didn't start there, you ain't making anything great again. You're just one of the players in this great big tragic show that we've got going here in the US of A. U.S. mayors seek to bypass Trump with direct role at UN climate talks. They go to conferences. They are implementing in their areas rules and regulations coming from the United Nations, coming from that Paris Climate Change Agreement. Bloomberg tells COP25 attendees that U.S. still in Paris Climate Accord. How is it a private citizen, which is, well, Now I guess he's a candidate. Oh, Christ. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's consider him a private citizen now because he's no longer the mayor of New York. All right. How is it that a private citizen can claim that the U.S. is still in Paris, in the Paris Climate Accord? Well, they do that because, well, Bloomy and Trumpy, they're together. Trump, New York, real estate, Bloomberg, the mayor, really? All right, so a private citizen cannot claim that the United States is still in an international treaty that our president did not sign. But we don't hear anything from Trump about this. So Pelosi and I think 14 U.S. reps went over to Spain. We're still in. We're still in. And she's speaking for Americans. She ain't speaking for me. And this guy is not speaking for me. And they're all violating the Constitution, and they're all engaging in crimes against humanity by implementing those sustainability goals, sustainable goals, under Agenda 2030. Yeah. American mayors see 40 cities pledge climate leadership. We are still in cities and counties. Check it out. Initiative. Cities are taking concrete steps to tackle climate change, from expanding their use of renewable energy to adopting aggressive emissions reductions targets and investing in sustainable infrastructure. Yeah. So, hell, central banks are going green. Central banks are going green. What does that mean? Well, here's what it means. Bank of England head and chair of the Bank of International Settlements Financial Stability Board from 2011 to 2018, Mark Carney, announced at this venue that climate disclosures must become comprehensive, climate risk management must be transformed, and sustainable investing must go mainstream. Carney then took on a more threatening tone by saying the firms that anticipate these developments will be rewarded handsomely. Those that don't will cease to exist. Loans will be approved to those companies, to those firms that are implementing the Paris Agreement, that are implementing Agenda 2030. That includes a whole lot: real estate, architecture, city planners, NGOs, well, everyone who is engaged in the economy. Farmers. If you don't submit a green application for loan, you won't get it. Mark Carney has been hailed by the environmental lobby as the leading eco-warrior of central banks, and those doing the hailing seem to rarely take notice of the blatant fact that the person who sits atop the technocratic power structure that has been given rise to the world's greatest economic and environmental injustices for decades is also the person designing how this dysfunctional world is supposed to be restructured. A new global reserve currency must replace the US dollar, modeled on Facebook's cryptocurrency, the Libra, which is scheduled to start issuance by early next year. I'm not sure when this article was out. I had it bookmarked, but unlike the Libra, however, Carney's cryptocurrency will be entirely controlled by private banking institutions and totally removed from sovereign nation states, which are just too influenced by short-term political interests rather than the enlightened technocratic elite who know how to truly think long-term. Digital currency. Here's another article that, it's banks worth 47 trillion adopt new United Nations-backed climate principles. Central banks adopted new United Nations-backed responsible banking principles to fight climate change. On Sunday, this was September 22nd, 2019, shifting their loan books away from fossil fuels. Deutsche Bank, Citigroup, Barclays, and I do believe most, like Goldman Sachs, they're all going green. They were among 130 banks to join the new framework on the eve of a United Nations summit in New York aimed at pushing companies and governments to act quickly to avert catastrophic global warming. These principles mean banks have to consider the impact of their loans on society, not just on their portfolio. Yay! So, irrelevant what Trump says about getting us out of the Paris Agreement. Irrelevant is the U.S. government signing on to treaties, and even if they did sign on to a treaty, they always violate the treaties, and they lie repeatedly, and they're getting the job done, and it's been going on for decades, and they're at the end game. So you want to still be spending your time discrediting someone who may have made a mistake along the way, may have believed something that, somebody else finds out that is not necessarily true, but the bulk of the information stands true. The most important information stands true. All links are below. I don't know what to do anymore. All links are below.